guess I've had this sort of long relationship with Sundance and the fashion. The first movie came out in 85, 86. I think it played here in what was the USA Film Festival before it became Sundance. And it was really a quirky, strange 46-minute film that I made that sort of became this, even though it was a very parochial Australian story, it became sort of this weird, I hate to use the word cult.
I remember it vividly. And when I saw it on the program, and it was Cane Toad's The Conquest 3D, it was like the thing that popped that I had to see.
Well, I hope it realised your expectation.
Yeah, why 3D? What made you feel that was the right approach to this? And I immediately had this image of a cane toad in close-up moving through the jungle or something. And of course, you do deliver that.
Sure. Look, my attitude, I mean, I've done a lot of films with animals, and my attitude is that the animal can't speak for itself. And so to take the point of view of the animal was very important to me, and I certainly did that with the first film. We had lenses that sat very low on the table, so I've got this mantra or this adage that I never look at an animal above its eye line. So it's never down like that, like a human looking at an animal. It's always like an animal to an animal point of view. So the first film, had that aesthetic with it. And of course, with this most recent film, 3D gave me the opportunity, was a tool where I could, and it sounds like a bad cliche now when you use this word with 3D, but immerse oneself in the world of the toad. So part of the theme of the film very much was to suggest that this was the toad's world, and the toad was a witness to man's stupidity. So in other words, in many of the scenes you see this toad interconnecting us and travelling through these scenes and travelling through these characters and these locations where man was being absurdly stupid about things, or perpetuating abject cruelty on the toad or what have you. And the toad was this little sentinel, this little witness to our folly. So 3D sort of certainly helped with that world. And to my mind, it's an extraordinary effective tool for this sort of film.
Yeah, because you're playing around with the idea that there's been an invasion. Now, of course, the folks in Australia were the ones who brought this poor creature into their world to supposedly kill off some larvae in the sugarcane, which it never did.
No.
But then it becomes this implacable creature that's evolving and becoming stronger and taking over the country. And you must have been tracking that all along.
Pretty much. I mean, I believe in the sort of non-fiction films I make that it's all about the research. It's all about finding, good stories that you sort of have an innate instinct to suggest are going to be good film stories or good narrative stories, and at the same time you want to find good characters to tell those stories. So it's a question of having, a very straight conventional timeline, which was 1935 through to the present day, and then fitting the stories where they fit against that timeline structure. And of course, the pre-title sequence of the film, shows the cane toad, in its origin 16 million years ago in the Miocene era, and it was basically the same animal back then, and all the experts said it looked the same, it sounded the same. So the journey takes us from 16 million years ago through to Puerto Rico in the 30s, through to Hawaii, and then on its way to Australia. Then, of course, we pick up the journey and go across the Australian continent.
Well, in the course of casting your movie with real people that you were going to talk to, you seem to be making a lot of fun of your fellow Australians.
Not so much that. I mean, I think they make fun of themselves.
Indeed. You're hoisting them.
I find people with colourful stories, but I don't make fun of their stories. I let them tell their stories, which are funny, or which are tragic or pathetic, or reveal something about themselves. But it's not so much that sort of a Michael Moore thing where you're trying to humiliate someone.
Not at all. No.
So I do try and treat them with respect. And generally, I don't think I've had a bad. I've never had a. They're happy with the stories I tell, because part of the gig with them, or the trust with them, is I say to them after I've filmed them, and I do the interviews first. And of course I go into the interviews knowing, because of my research, what story they're going to tell. And then I say to them, well, how can I best illustrate your story? Because in as much as you're a very interesting interviewee, all I've got is a talking head, but I'm going to need some, some supplementary material to illustrate that.